Hi everyone. Last year I had given the Law GAT exam and Alhamdulillah I had scored 83 out of 100, and later on I was informed that I had achieved the highest score in that exam session. Interestingly, this was the same exam session in which a huge number of students had failed the exam, and those students who had failed had even filed a petition challenging the very need for the exam and the fact that it had been way too difficult. Later, following the protests by the students, the Punjab Bar Council had even issued a notification declaring that the passing mark was 40 instead of 50. Anyway, what I want to emphasize is the fact that this issue of failing the exam is true for both foreign graduates as well as local graduates, and while it is not that surprising if someone who has studied foreign law and has never gone through Pakistani law before will probably end up failing this exam, but I personally know a lot of students who had completed their law degree from Pakistan and had yet failed the exam. And I think that this fact clearly shows that the reason behind failure is not whether one is a local graduate or a foreign graduate, but in the way that most students perceive this new exam, which has been introduced in Pakistan only very recently. Before we continue, let me clarify quickly that the Law GAT is not the same as the LAT, which is the law admission test that students are required to pass in order to obtain admission into law school in Pakistan. As for the Law GAT, it is an exam which students are now required to attempt after they have graduated from law school, and this exam is mandatory for anyone who wants to practice law and obtain the license required to do so. With that out of the way, let's discuss some important aspects of the Law GAT, that is, the Law Graduate Assessment Test. Well, in my opinion, the Law GAT isn't too difficult to pass in the first attempt, and the study methods required to pass this exam are pretty much the same as for any other standardized test. In another video, I am going to share the specific study methods that I used for this specific MCQ kind of exam, where we are expected to memorize massive amounts of information. And I'll also be making an additional video about the key sections that you need to know from the major acts. So yes, if you're interested, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also, if you like this video, then please do give it a thumbs up, as that will encourage me to make more videos. And finally, if you have friends who are preparing for this exam, then please do share this video with them. So, what I'm going to do in this short video is, firstly, point out one major reason why so many students had failed the exam, and then I will talk about how you can prepare for this exam effectively. So, like I said, this exam is not much different from other exams, but there are a few misconceptions that most students hold regarding this exam, because of which they either do not take this exam seriously or simply presume that they can prepare for this exam overnight, and therefore they don't spend the required amount of time needed to achieve a passing score. As most of you must be aware, you are allowed only 3 attempts at this exam, so I think that it's really important that you take this exam quite seriously and make sure to do your very best at each attempt. So, what did I do differently that I managed to obtain such a good score while so many other students found it difficult to even pass? Well, I think that the only reason that I did so well is that I did not harbor any preconceived notions regarding this exam, which in turn helped me to stay focused on preparing for the exam itself. So yes, I truly believe that the key to doing well in this exam is to remove certain misconceptions, all of which in one way or another lead students to adopt a non-serious attitude towards this exam, and this is what actually explains the high ratio of failing students. So, without further ado, let's discuss these 5 misconceptions right away. Number 1. Most students who sign up for this exam, especially those who have graduated from a foreign university, have this expectation that it's a Pakistani exam, so it must surely be a walk in the park. And obviously, when students start preparing for an exam presuming that it will surely be very easy, then they tend to take it very lightly. I have myself heard some students say, for instance, that if we have cleared the University of London exams, then surely we can also pass this exam easily. So, my advice is that you should not underestimate the difficulty level of this exam and that you need to mentally prepare yourself that this exam is going to be just as difficult as any other law exam you may have given earlier in law school. Number 2. The next mistake that I have seen some students make is that they think that the invigilation arrangements will not be very strict, and so it will definitely be possible to cheat, perhaps just enough to get a passing mark. But let me tell you that the exam is conducted with strict invigilation and the seating arrangement is such that it is impossible to be able to look at someone else's answer sheet. Number 3. A lot of students think that this is a relatively new exam, so surely the examiners will keep this fact in mind while setting the exam paper, because obviously the examiners don't want the majority of students to end up failing, right? Well, wrong. This kind of reasoning doesn't help at all. It's true that we don't have access to many past papers for the simple reason that this kind of exam never existed before and it is the first time that this exam has been introduced in Pakistan. However, you will be fooling yourself if you think that the exam will be a walk in the park just because it has been introduced recently. Number 4. Another mistake that students make is that they take advice from senior lawyers regarding the Law GAT exam. Now, the issue is that these senior advocates had given the exam conducted by the local bar council, for instance the Sindh or Punjab Bar Council, so little do they know that the Law GAT is not the same as the exam that used to be conducted by the Bar Council and which was reputed to be extremely easy, at least much easier as compared to the Law GAT. So yes, please don't take advice from anyone who has not actually given the Law GAT. Those who had given the exam conducted by the local bar council often advise that the Law GAT will be very easy, which is simply not true. The difficulty level has changed drastically, so you will only be misleading yourself if you rely on advice that is coming from someone who has no idea about the differences in this new exam. Number 5. The last point, which is related to the other points, is that most students think that this exam is just a formality, so not only do they expect that the exam itself will be easy, but also that the examiners will be very lenient in marking it. Well, let me tell you that no examiner is actually going to ever look at your answer sheet. It will directly be scored using a computer, so please don't think that there will be any hope of being given any grace marks. I myself know a few students who failed because they scored 49, which is just 1 mark less than 50. So you see, just because this is a newly introduced exam doesn't mean that the marking criteria is relaxed, and the very fact that this exam has been made compulsory on the orders of the Supreme Court of Pakistan makes it quite obvious that this exam is not a mere formality. So please don't be among those students who initially take the exam lightly until they actually see the exam and then later they regret when they get the results. But you see, there is no point in regretting and wishing that you had studied just a little more. So, having pointed out the 5 misconceptions, I now repeat that I think that the reason I was able to do so well in this exam was quite simple. That is, that I did not hold any of these widely held preconceived notions. Instead, I took it seriously just like any other exam. Now, let's talk about how you can effectively prepare for this exam. Well, for those of you who have completed a local law degree, trust me, if you have studied hard during your 5 years in law school, then this exam will be a piece of cake for you. All you need to do is to thoroughly revise all of the material that you have already studied. As for those of you who have never studied Pakistani laws before, that is, those students who have completed their LLB from some foreign university, such as the University of London, I must first of all warn you to be very careful while using the books that are available for preparing for this exam. Now, the issue is that these preparatory books are full of wrong answers, and what happens is that those students who have graduated from some foreign university don't even know that a lot of the answers in these books are completely wrong. Now, sadly, this is a very serious issue that even those of us who want to study seriously can't do so simply because of a lack of good resources to study for this exam. I personally felt it quite annoying that every time I would sit down to study from these books, I would come across incorrect answers and would have to waste precious study time just in cross-checking and looking up the right answers. I myself have completed my LLB from the University of London, but the reason I knew that these books contain wrong answers is because I had spent a lot of time working while I was studying, so by the time I completed my law degree, I was already familiar with a lot of the important sections. However, most students don't have any work experience at all, which is why they have no idea that the books are not to be relied on. Now, after hearing this, you must be quite worried, but let me tell you that there is something that you can do to help yourself pass the exam. So, this is what you need to do. First of all, get at least one of these books. You don't have to buy all of them, just get at least one for now, and in another video, I will review the contents of these books. Anyway, you have no option for now until someone publishes a better book in the future which is free of errors. So, the way to use these books is as follows. First, open any particular chapter, for instance the one on specific relief, and then for this particular topic just focus on the questions, because the author has already included only those sections in the questions which are the key sections which you must know by heart. So, half of the work is already done for you, because for each topic you can use the book as a guidance about which sections are important from each topic. Now, the hard work that you will need to do is to use the bare acts, which you can easily download for free, and then cross-check the answers for at least half of the questions. Now, the good thing about this method is that you will end up becoming familiar with the key sections in the process of cross-checking, so later on the task of memorizing them will become a little bit easier as you get closer to the exam. However, there are some topics where you can't easily cross-check the answers, especially if you have graduated from a foreign university. For instance, for Islamic Jurisprudence, I had not studied local law, so I had absolutely no reliable material which I could use to cross-check the answers. And then in the exam, I had just skipped all of the questions which came from this particular section of the syllabus. So that's one thing that you should keep in mind, but still this is just one section of the syllabus, so it doesn't really matter if you skip it, because you can still focus on the other sections which can easily be cross-checked using the bare acts. Now, my last piece of advice is that we all know that this exam requires a lot of ratta, that is rote learning. The thing is that this exam usually tests students on the key sections, and it is very easy to gradually become familiar with these key sections once you start practicing. In that situation, you would naturally memorize the key sections over a short period of time after coming into practice, because you actually will be using these sections in relevant cases. However, since this exam expects students to know the sections before they have started working, that is practicing, this means that students have to engage in some form of rote learning. So, regarding this, I will make another video soon, because this video has already become quite long. For now, I just want to emphasize that there is a lot of memorization to be done, so it is in your best interests not to leave it all for the last day. So yes, in another video inshallah, I will share some study methods and memorization techniques that I had used to prepare for this exam in a very short time. Okay guys, that's it for now. If you found this video useful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.